Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, now Trump's pick for National Security Advisor, taking some heat for things he has said about Islam. Incoming Chief of Staff Reince Priebus on ABC over the weekend, putting those remarks into this larger context.
Phrasing can always be done differently, but clearly there are some aspects of that faith that are problematic, and we know them. We've seen it. But it certainly isn't a blanket for all people of that faith. But Mike Flynn is one of the most highly respected intelligence officers in America, someone who the president-elect respects and trusts, and he's an unbelievably gifted, smart person that will lead that post with honor and dignity.
Now there is this debate. Marianne Marsh, former senior advisor to John Kerry, and Katie Pavlich, news editor for townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. And ladies, good Monday to you, Marianne and Katie.
Good morning.
Katie, is this a big deal, or is this something that has to be parsed carefully when you examine the words that have been spoken?
Look, I think General Flynn could have been more specific in his remarks, but it's obvious he's discussing radical Islam, and the argument that he's somehow Islamophobic is a really old, tired argument that has gotten people killed in this country. And General Flynn and Donald Trump want to try and get rid of the radical Islam problem we have in the United States and overseas. For 8 years, President Obama has refused to name the enemy, which is radical Islam, and we've seen it hit home here in 2009 with political correctness and the Fort Hood shooting. We saw it in San Bernardino, and it's very clear that for decades now, radical Islamic terrorists have taken advantage of the tolerance and freedoms that Americans offer them in order to use their religion to attack us here at home and abroad. And I think that they're trying to get that to stop.
Yeah, Marianne, what do you think of this? Extraordinary thing how these elections sometimes can be 180s on policy or conversation or approach or attitude. It's pretty extraordinary. Go ahead and start there.
Well, I think what's interesting to me, Bill, is this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. This is exactly what Donald Trump said he would do throughout the campaign. And the problem continues to be, if he declares war on Muslims, that is exactly what ISIS wants. They want a holy war. And I'll remind everybody that no one's ever won a holy war in the history of mankind. So they will use it to recruit more terrorists, have more attacks on us, and make it tougher for us to actually win the war on terrorism and against ISIS. And that is what they have said all along. So if we go down this path, not only will it be Muslims, I think you could see it with other groups, because just as Reince Priebus said, we're only doing this till we get a better way of vetting Muslims.
Well, okay.
You can hear the Trump people say the same thing about Mexicans.
You're taking the argument that it's incitement.
We build a wall.
This is, let me just play one of the clips from August. Michael Flynn was in Dallas when he said the following.
Islam is a political ideology. It is a political ideology. It definitely hides behind this notion of it being a religion. And I have a very, very tough time, because I don't see a lot of people screaming Jesus Christ with hatchets or machetes or rifles shooting up clubs. And it's like a malignant cancer, though, in this case. It has metastasized.
Katie, go ahead and start there. That's the kind of blunt talk, if you want to use that phrase, that Donald Trump is drawn to. And that clip right there would show you how a relationship could begin between these two men. Go ahead, Katie.
Well, I think that they're addressing the issue, and let's not forget that radical Islam is not just recognized by Michael Flynn or Donald Trump. It's also recognized by Islam and those who practice it, the majority of those who practice it. They recognize that there is a problem within their faith that has to be addressed. There's a lot of people in the Muslim community who have fought against radical Islam, and they don't want that part to define the rest of it, and therefore they actually agree with Michael Flynn. But to go back to what Marianne said about ISIS and this idea of a holy war, ISIS has already declared a holy war, a religious war on the United States and on the West. This is the reason why we see them saying things like Allahu Akbar before all of the attacks. There's a reason why you have them saying that this is their God and they're doing it in the name of their religion. So let's not act like we're the ones who are somehow waging a war on them religiously. They started this and they're trying to finish it, and the Trump administration has tried to do the opposite of the Obama administration in naming the enemy.
Marianne, go ahead, and I just want to remind you what Priebus said. There are some people that are radicalized, and there are some people that have to be prevented from coming into this country. On the face, do you disagree with that?
First, let me address what Katie said. There's a reason that ISIS has featured Donald Trump in their recruitment videos since last spring, at least. And that should tell you everything, number one. Number two, Reince Priebus said the Muslim religion until we get a better way of vetting it. So that's a pretty broad statement there. And you can certainly see where that could extend to other religions, other people, other things. That should be chilling to everyone. And I think that's the issue here. This is a lazy way to fight terrorism because it compromises our values. And as we're held up as the greatest democracy on earth to everyone in the world, the rest of the world looks at us and says, they're willing to compromise their values and their democratic way of going about business to justify these actions. And that is the problem with all of this.
So you can just call Fort Hood workplace violence.
Right. These terrorists have taken advantage of American tolerance and used our freedoms against us. That's what they've done, and it's time for that to change. And it's not about Muslims coming into the country.
Hang on, Marianne.
This isn't about Muslims coming into the country. This is about vetting people who live in terrorism hotspots from coming into the United States. We have the right to do that. If the left wants to act like that means Muslims, then that's their intolerance and their bigotry. Not protecting this. We're talking about people who are living in countries that are terrorism hotspots. It's about the terrorism and vetting people before we get here. We have refugees who have been in the United States who have either carried out attacks on American citizens or plan to carry out attacks on American citizens.
Ladies, thank you.
Putting American
to both of you, thank you. I'm well out of time, but I appreciate the debate. Thank you, Marianne.
Bill.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
Heather.
Good debate.